big frustration for a lot of job seekers is a lot of people say, well, I'm spending hours and hours and all this time tweaking my resume endlessly over and over. That shouldn't be necessary. Okay, some customization is necessary, yes, because sometimes we might apply for something that's essentially the same job, but it has a slightly different title or just emphasizes slightly different skills. That's a quick fix on the resume. However, if somebody feels like they are constantly, and I hear this a lot, rewriting their resume for every job, that tells me you're probably applying for too broad of a range of jobs. We shouldn't be fully rewriting our resume or even really the cover letter over and over for every job. That's not a good use of your time in a job search.
You just saw a short clip from our interview with Lorraine Rise, the CEO of Career Uprising, where she answers the question, what to do when your job search isn't working. Real quick, do me a favor, subscribe and like the video to help our channel grow, then ring the bell to be notified when we post videos in the future. As you watch this part of the interview, post in the comments your frustrations with the current job market. And to see the complete interview, click up here so you can hear more advice from Lorraine, who gives us practical advice to activate your job search with productive action steps you can take right now.
What should you do if you're not getting any responses to your job application?
Mm-hmm. So I think one specific thing that you can do here is the most basic thing is to take a look at the resume and the LinkedIn. There's some really common, simple, easy to fix mistakes that I see that can improve callbacks on applications. So starting with the resume first, make sure that it truly is targeted to the job you are applying for. The more specific, honestly, that you can be, the better. So take a good look at the job description, scan through for the keywords, and what is the core of the job? What is the problem that this job solves, right? Because you are a problem solver. That's why you want to fill this position. So make sure from just a basic keyword standpoint, but also the core components of the job. Make sure that comes through really clear on your resume. Especially at the very top when you typically have a job title or a headline, that's that first impression. So the first third of the resume on that first page, that's the first impression. That's what they see first, and that has to speak directly to the jobs that you are applying for. And then same thing with the LinkedIn. I see a lot of mistakes with LinkedIn headlines. The LinkedIn headline is the first thing besides the photo that they see on the profile. And I see a lot of really unique and creative LinkedIn headlines out there, but they're not aligned with the job that the person is applying for. That's a problem. That is definitely a problem. People, like a recruiter, for example, is probably not going to click on your profile to find out what you do. You need to tell them what you do in that headline. So it's basically about first impressions, right? Making sure that that's a meaningful and targeted first impression. So if you're not getting responses, first take a step back, take a look at your documents, maybe even have somebody else take a look, somebody else more objective, and say, here's the job I'm applying for. Here's what I'm putting out. What do you think? Would you hire me? Does this look relevant to you? Is it clear what I do from my resume, or is it a little bit ambiguous? That's the first starting point. Then when we dig a little bit deeper, we want to look at your job search strategy. Perhaps you are only applying for jobs online and not doing any networking, or not connecting with any recruiters, or not necessarily targeting any specific companies that you are interested in. There's a number of other methods that you could put in there as well. But I think the first thing that you can do is really make sure that there's a clear connection between the resume and the LinkedIn and the jobs that you are applying for, and not just the job that you've been in, but the job you are applying for, because sometimes that's a little bit different when we're making a little bit of a career pivot. So we have to make sure that we have our target in mind when we give that first impression on the resume and the LinkedIn.
That makes a lot of sense. And just to kind of dig into your response there, the first thing you mentioned was your keyword. Your resume needs to be targeted towards a specific job. And a point there is that you have to be found first. That your resume is not a document that doesn't change, right? It's a dynamic document that needs to change based on the position you're looking for or applying for at that moment. Is that a fair, that correct?
It is. And the one thing I want to speak to that is a big frustration for a lot of job seekers is a lot of people say, well, I'm spending hours and hours and all this time tweaking my resume endlessly over and over. That shouldn't be necessary. Okay. Some customization is necessary. Yes, because sometimes we might apply for something that's essentially the same job, but it has a slightly different title or just emphasizes slightly different skills. That's a quick fix on the resume. However, if somebody feels like they are constantly, and I hear this a lot, rewriting their resume for every job, that tells me you're probably applying for too broad of a range of jobs. We shouldn't be fully rewriting our resume or even really the cover letter over and over for every job. That's not a good use of your time in a job search. You should have one resume that I would say works for the majority of jobs with some customization needed for some that might be a little bit different, or maybe just a slightly different level, but the same job, or the same job but called something a little bit different, right? But we shouldn't be rewriting our resume endlessly over and over. That's a red flag that something is probably not aligned or your job search is too broad, which is another really common mistake that a lot of people make.
What it sounds like to me when someone's doing that is they don't know what they want. They are in what I would say is panic mode. They've been given the notice and now they're on the job market with everybody else and they're just applying, and that goes back to what I mentioned earlier is career management, knowing what your career is, what your path is, where you're headed. And then it allows someone to build a resume that drives that result that they're looking for. And so, whatever position they're in today, they should have a career plan. That's your career strategy that you offer when you work with someone. Where are you
Mhm.
headed? Where do you see yourself in 5, 10, 20 years? And so, if you're in the supply chain, if you're a buyer or a contract manager, your next level should be a senior buyer or a senior contract manager or a director. And now you need to start building experience that goes in your resume that speaks to a position like that. Is that fair? Is that
Mhm.
really what we're talking about?
Absolutely, absolutely. You want to know who you are now and where you're going at least for the next position. You don't necessarily have to have the next 10 years figured out, right? I don't have that figured out. That's okay. But for your short-term immediate goal, you do need to have clarity on that because I hear a lot of times, well, I'd like to do this, but I'll take this, or I'll take anything. And you
Right.
don't really want to take anything. What you mean when you say that is, I need a job quickly. But truly, you want a job that you're aligned with, that at a company that is a good fit for you, something that advances your career, but you do want it as quickly as possible. And sometimes we're in a position where we need to get income fast. So of course, sometimes we have to take a stepping stone or a bridge job, and that is perfectly fine. But we, as much as possible, we really want to be shooting for what we really want and targeting ourselves for that, because if we just apply for everything, we're going to get nothing.
I think it also speaks to what you also mentioned previously was networking. Always
Yeah.
networking, and especially in this day and age when everyone's online, you're not really with people. You have to
Yeah.
make a deliberate effort to get out of the house and get in front of people that provide opportunities for you. That's professional networking, professional associations, conferences, events, not just people at your company because they know who you are, but they also are not necessarily the ones that are going to give you that next opportunity. So
Mhm.
networking is critical. Any thoughts on networking, what people should be doing there?
Yes. So there is one specific starting point, one activity that I give my coaching clients. And I say the first thing I want you to do is make a list of your top 10 to 15 connections. So people who know you may be former bosses, former coworkers, even friends and family, people that you feel comfortable, kind of that low hanging fruit, right? Here's
Right.
the first small crop of people that I feel comfortable reaching out to, sharing my job search with, people that I think will pick up the phone and maybe help me a little bit, right? So start, and if 10 to 15 feels large, I say start with 5. Start smaller. Some people will say 10 to 15, that's no problem. I can give you 25. I love that. But if they don't say that, I say, okay, that's fine. Start with 5. Do you know 5 people you could reach out to this week and share what your target is? And I have actually a specific framework, if you want me to go into it, that an acronym that I teach clients when networking, so they know what to say.
Okay.
So we can kind of get into that in a second. But the first thing that you need to do is take an inventory of who is in your network. Who do you know? Because a lot of times we don't realize we know people who can help us. We do. Until you actually look and go through your contacts and go through LinkedIn and survey, who do I know? Where do they work? Who do they know? We don't really know the power that might be there. You know, as a business owner, I'm connected to people that could absolutely
Right.
refer people to me. I just don't know it. Like if they don't know what I do and I don't ask and nurture that relationship, they're not going to think to refer people to me. It's so I have to do this process myself constantly. And it's something I didn't learn until I became a business owner. I didn't have a career coach like myself when I was searching
Right.
for jobs. So I didn't know all this. But that really is the first step. So take an inventory of your network and start small if you need to. Start with just a few people, make a list, and people that you feel will reach out to because you want to build your confidence up if it's something that you're not very confident with.
And I think it also, we talked about before is, you run your career like a business, and you just mentioned it. You're as an entrepreneur, you know what to do to network, to build your business, and you're doing it all the time, right?
Yep.
Even when you're on vacation or out, you always got an eye out for that next
Yeah.
opportunity. And people need to do the same thing. They need to build their career like a business. And this is a constant networking thing that they must do. And one thing that I thought of when you mentioned that is now is not the time to be prideful. And I say that meaning you need to let people know you need a job or are looking for a new opportunity on LinkedIn, your friends and family, and not say, when they say, well, how are things going? Everything's fine. I'll be good. It's the recession. You say, well, I'm always looking. And the simple way to say, I'm always looking for an opportunity. That
Yes.
way they know that, hey, he's open. So if they'll think of you and keep an ear out for
Yeah.
you when there's an opportunity, and they'll say, well, what do you do? And then you have to give them, that career focus, where you're headed, what you're doing. But as a business owner, of your career, you have to constantly network and have a strategy and everything else that you get when you work with a career coach like Lorraine. So
Mhm.
that's definitely something we want to do. So this kind of leads us into that next question. We've kind of been talking a little bit about it, but that next question.
Thank you for watching this part of the interview. In the comments, let us know what other questions you have about the job search in the current market. Down below in the description, you will find 2 free resources. A free video training course from Lorraine, the Career Change Roadmap, where she shares with you practical strategies on what you need to do when you're changing the career. You'll also find a link to get a free resume review from SCM.Jobs. This free resume review is conducted by professional resume writers who can let you know how your resume comes across when you're applying for a job. Both resources are free, so gain better insight to improve your results. And to get more great insight into the job search from Lorraine, click on the link to watch the complete interview. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and ring the bell to help our channel grow and be notified of future videos just like this.